Thank you very much. First of all, I like to say it's a disclaimer that I'm not acting in a weak country, which is the title of this session. And I think the words are very important. I come from a very proud country with strong history, went through very tough times, slavery, colonization, and actually I found us to be very strong because some population didn't survive all these ordeals. So my suggestion is to change the title. This is important because you are going to train the next generation of leaders. And I think it's important that they understand that our world of today needs more of interaction. And yesterday I talked about having an agreed worldwide view about how we want to conduct our common civilizations. And I don't think it's on the base of who is strong and who is weak. I think it should be about opportunity that we share, and of course not being in denial of our challenges. It applies also to the idea of, who is failing who. You might be in a very developed country, and if you don't access basic services, no matter how strong or powerful your country is, that very same country is failing you. So it addresses the issues of marginalized population within also strong countries. And follow my eyes, you would see it in very, very, very rich settings. So that was the disclaimer. As a Minister of Justice in Senegal, I tried to implement a very important reform of the justice system. And the justice system, as you know, in every place, is a very strong body to move around. And my main question when I got appointed was how to ensure that all citizens, no matter of their origin, no matter of their wealth or their gender, would have a chance to access the justice system. Yesterday we were asking ourselves, what is the role of a state? In my eyes, one of the most important roles of a state is as a duty bearer to provide justice to its citizen, the right holders. So that was, when I arrived, my submission for the portfolio I was in charge of. Senegal is a former French colony, a small country, 15 million. We got our independence quite recently, in 1960. It's quite recent. The general opinion of the population was that the justice is there to perpetuate the power balance, I would say the imbalance between the powerful and the little. I don't think it's very specific to Senegal, but I think it's a broad view that when you engage this institution, you might not have a fair chance if you are low income, if you are not very educated. So that's where we were coming from. And the first issue then was how to improve access to the justice system. Before colonization, there was a different system of conflict solving mechanism. During colonization, then when the French arrived, the justice system was perceived by the population as an external body set up by the colonizer to impose its rule of law. So that is the baggage that the justice system is carrying. And the perception is not, completely gone. For the regular citizen, there is still the myth that the justice system is served according to wealth and social status. So when we did our study, that's what we found. As a consequence, the population, most of them resolved to go to court when all the cultural and religious mechanism fail, including families and religious mechanism. We are a country of 96% Muslim, yet with a tradition of tolerance because our first president was Catholic, Léopold Sédar Senghor, and he was supported by the Muslim religious leaders against his opponent, who was a Muslim. So we come from that background where a religion is there, Islam is there, but a very open one. So the problem is, not the problem, the fact is, people are more tend more to to go into informal way of solving problems rather than going to the justice. But yet, and the justice system accommodated that, because in Senegal, most of the marriages are not officially registered. You're only considered as being married if you pass before an imam. And then a lot of people consider that the marriage is done. But the problem is, when problem arises, you don't have any proof that you've been married to that gentleman who you call your husband for a long time. So the state has to acknowledge the situation. And now, I mean, for a long time, for 15 to 20 years now, the imam were allowed to deliver certificates. So those certificates were used by women to go to court and get, alimonies or whatever situation they were in, and they were asking for the justice system to support them. So it was a matter of access. So the lesson there is that you may have a structure that is officially put there with procedures and standards, but if you don't really address the cultural perceptions of that institution, you may be running your standards and norms, but you will be missing and failing most of the population. So we had to adjust to that. But at the same time, when I came, I said, that's all fine, but are those traditional structures really defending the women, the weaks, and the others? That wasn't necessarily the case, because when you have a family conflict, be it divorce or inheritance issues, you may have an arrangement, a private one, might be under the supervision of the imam or the supervision of the grandfather of the family. When you have an agreement, you go to court, the judge bring you, ask you, are you, agreeing on this inheritance arrangement? If everybody say yes, he deliver an inheritance certificate. But most of the time, the voice of women and young people within the family are undermined. So to me, we had to ensure that access to the formal justice system was a reality to everyone. So how to do that? First of all, I initiated the decentralization of justice services. Most of the time, you had to travel hundreds of kilometers to get to the tribunal. So, of course, if you are low income, if you are a woman not educated, I mean, you're afraid of, engaging such because a tribunal is very, very, very scary. You would not go, and you would prefer to have a private arrangement at your cost. So the idea was to redesign the map of the justice system and bringing more tribunal at the provincial level. You would reduce the distance from what we call les justiciables, those who seek for justice, and the justice system, the magistrate and the prosecutor. So it was a very big undertaking that requires money, of course, but that wasn't the most difficult part. The most difficult part was to negotiate with the magistrate. These are established, powerful people who hate change. They prefer to be where they are, to enjoy their situation. So redesigning the map for them was like, what do you want to do, Madam Minister? But we're fine as it is. So how did I go about it? First of all, I tried to engage the unions of the magistrate. So they were mellow. It was a yes, but actually it was a no, because they were not moving toward me. But I did my little research, and I found out that within the union, some of them might be open to change. So I engaged them privately, and I established sort of a committee for change. So that was the magistrate. Some of them came, and then we started explaining. After that, I had to bring in if you take the ladder of the justice system, you have the magistrate and the judges and the prosecutors at the top, and then you have the clerk and the assistant. But the clerk and the assistant, this is like the little hands, but they're numerous. So I had to bring them in and explain to them what the change was all about. They were interested at the beginning. The first question was, our wages are going to be impacted, Madam Minister? I said, no. So are we going to work longer hours? I said, well, we're going to see. So we had to sort of discuss and bargain. The whole idea for me was to sell them the change and to show them that it was going to improve their status. And that is very important when you introduce change. People would see general change for the general population as something good, but if they don't relate to that change, if that change doesn't have a positive impact on them, they would not buy in. And then they would organize themselves to resist the change. So I went into an interaction with them. But the most important piece that helped me redesign the map was the public support. I went out and tried to find my allies. It is very important when you are at that level, because moving around an institution is such a big task that you definitely need to have public support. If you don't, you are in the hands of the unions, you are in the hands of the group of interest. So I spent a lot of time on TV and radio to implement that. I'm going to go quick because we don't have much time. I also kicked off the land reform process, which was also another big undertaking. In Senegal, we do have sort of a situation that is a little bit complex when it comes to land legislation. Officially and in the constitution, all land of the country belong to the states. But yet, we do have traditional law saying that these lands belong to this family, etc. And you have to sort of negotiate in between if you want to do a reform. Because the idea is we do have lands out there. You have business people who want to invest, but the status is so confusing that, I mean, they say, well, listen, we don't know what's going to happen if we put our money in a business here. So we started that in 2012, and 7 years down the line, we are still in progress because of the resistance. But where I consider that we made significant progress was in the front of fighting corruption and impunity, because we consider, and I had the support from President Macky Sall, I was his Minister of Justice. So another lesson to learn is when you want to undertake these changes, you need political backup from the top. And he agreed that corruption was something we needed to take the bull by the horn. And we created the National Office Against Corruption and Fraud, and we decided to prosecute big cases, including the son of the previous president, which was unheard of in Africa, and he had to serve time. At the same time, we also pursued and tried Hissène Habré, which is the former president of Chad, accused of having mass killing 30,000 people. He was living in Senegal for more than 20 years. There was 2 attempts to try him. He managed, not to escape those trials. But we learned from the experience of the extraordinary chambers of Cambodia, where the Red Khmer have been tried. So we share experiences. So I do believe that best practices work. And we sort of took some of it and created the extraordinary chamber for Hissène Habré trial, and now he's serving life in prison. So that was an innovation also, because I mean usually you don't bring to trial a president or former presidents. So it was very bold of President Macky Sall to sort of allow this trial to happen. If I were to say what are the key elements that you need to jungle with if you have this big project, I said, first of all, it has to be a shared project with different stakeholders. That's very important. Second, you have also to know who your opponents were, because I had many opponents. First of all, as a female Minister of Justice, I was the second one. The first one was years back. All that's where the gender dimension of perception of leaders isn't there. I was portrayed in the press by the opponent of the change. Of course, those who have interest, vested interest of status quo, they're powerful people most of the time. And what I was hearing was, well, I mean, she's unruly. She's not following even the recommendation of the president who put her there. She has her own career, her own plan. She want to replace the president. So all of that was to undermine me. But at the same time, I tried to find also allies who would be as powerful or even more powerful than them. And that's how we try to do things. We got some results, but there are other places where we still need to make progress. Thank you.